The afternoon sun blazed over the East Prussian forests as Field Marshal Erwin Rommel's staff car passed through the final security checkpoint at the Wolfschanze. It was late November 1942. He had been summoned from North Africa to report on the deteriorating situation in the desert, and the journey from Libya had taken days, long enough to organize the observations he carried into something that would be difficult for anyone in that briefing room to hear. The room was austere, functional. Hitler sat at the head of the long table, flanked by Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel and General Alfred Jodl. Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring was present for the Luftwaffe. Albert Speer sat near the wall with his production folders. They were expecting an operational report. Supply difficulties, British strength, tactical situations. What they received was something else. Rommel began with the recent battles, the ebb and flow of desert warfare, the challenges of fighting at the end of extended supply lines. Then his tone shifted. "Mein Führer, I must report on a matter of strategic significance that extends beyond the tactical situation in North Africa. I have observed American forces in combat, and our intelligence assessments of American military capability are fundamentally incorrect." Hitler leaned forward. American units had only recently entered the war through Operation Torch, the landings in Morocco and Algeria. Reports suggested they were inexperienced, poorly led, softened by the comforts of civilian life. Rommel's own forces had inflicted sharp defeats on American units at Kasserine Pass just weeks earlier, which had seemed to confirm those assumptions. "The Americans learned quickly," Rommel said. "More importantly, they possess material advantages that our intelligence has consistently underestimated." He spread photographs across the table. Images of American supply dumps in North Africa, acres of material stockpiled behind the front lines. Ammunition, fuel, spare parts, food, medical supplies, all in quantities that would have seemed impossible to any German officer accustomed to constant scarcity. This photograph was taken at a supply base near Casablanca. A single American depot contains more vehicles than my entire Africa Corps. And this is one depot in a secondary theater, thousands of miles from American factories. Göring shifted in his chair. "Excess. Wasteful. They compensate for lack of skill with material superiority." "Perhaps. But the relevant question is not whether their methods are efficient by our standards, but whether those methods are effective. And they are effective." Rommel pulled out more documents. Statistics compiled from multiple sources. Captured equipment manuals, prisoner interrogations, his own observations of the material flowing into North Africa. American factories produced approximately 20,000 aircraft in 1941. This year, they will produce approximately 48,000. Next year, intelligence estimates suggest production will exceed 85,000. The numbers settled over the room. Germany's total aircraft production for 1942 would be approximately 15,000. The Luftwaffe was being outproduced by a factor of 3 to 1, and the gap was widening with every month. "Impossible," Göring said flatly. "These numbers are propaganda. A single American factory complex, Willow Run, will produce one B-24 Liberator bomber every hour once it reaches full capacity," Rommel replied. "Every hour, Herr Reichsmarschall. That is one factory producing one aircraft type, approaching output that rivals entire national programs." Hitler walked to the window, his back to the room. The forest outside was peaceful, insulated from the front lines where the war's outcome would be determined. Rommel's words threatened that insulation. "What of tanks?" Hitler asked without turning. "We produce the finest tanks in the world. Quality over quantity. The Americans produced 24,000 tanks this year. Germany produced 9,000. And while our Tigers and Panthers are superior to their Shermans in single combat, the Americans can afford to lose 3 or 4 Shermans to destroy one Tiger and still come out ahead. They have the production capacity to accept those loss ratios and overwhelm us through numbers." He moved to the map on the wall. "But it is not only the quantities, it is the logistics behind them. The Americans have built a system that transports this equipment across the Atlantic Ocean, unloads it in North African ports, and distributes it to units hundreds of miles inland, all while maintaining supply flows that never falter. Admiral Dönitz reports significant U-boat sinkings, Jodl said. And yet, the supplies keep arriving faster than we can destroy the ships carrying them. The Americans are building Liberty ships at a rate of 3 per day, completed from start to finish. Our U-boats sink perhaps 50 ships per month at best. The arithmetic is not in our favor. Silence. The mathematics were undeniable. Speer had been quietly cross-referencing his own figures with Rommel's, and his expression had shifted from skepticism to something more troubled. The strategic implications are severe, Rommel continued. In North Africa, I am already fighting at a significant material disadvantage. For every tank I lose, the enemy replaces it within weeks. For every aircraft shot down, another appears. For every gallon of fuel we struggle to transport across the Mediterranean, the Allies have unlimited supplies delivered directly to their ports. You are counseling defeat, Hitler said, his voice carrying a new edge. I am counseling realism, mein Führer. Wars are won by many factors: leadership, tactics, morale, will. But in modern warfare, industrial production is foundational. And in industrial production, America possesses advantages that tactical brilliance alone cannot overcome. He held up a photograph of an M4 Sherman tank. The Sherman is not as good as our Panther in single combat. But for every Panther we field, they can field 5 Shermans. 5 Shermans properly employed will destroy 1 Panther. And after the battle, they have the factories to replace all 5. We do not have the factories to replace 1 Panther. You have lost your nerve, Hitler said. The Desert Fox has become timid. I have gained perspective. At Alam Halfa and El Alamein, I faced enemies who had more tanks, more artillery, more ammunition, more fuel than I possessed. British tactical leadership was adequate, but not exceptional. Yet they won because they could replace their losses, and I could not. They could afford mistakes. I could not afford any. He gathered his documents and pressed on, knowing the meeting was failing, but driven by the conviction that honesty was the only professional response to what he had witnessed. The Americans will invade France. Perhaps in 1943, certainly by 1944. When they do, they will bring material superiority on a scale that will make North Africa appear limited. Thousands of ships, tens of thousands of aircraft, hundreds of thousands of vehicles. They will use their abundant artillery to pulverize defenses, their air power to isolate the battlefield, their logistics to sustain continuous pressure. They will apply industrial might to military problems, and they have the capacity to make that approach work against anything we can construct. Hitler stood, ending the meeting. Enough. You will return to Africa and hold your positions. You will fight with the resources available. You will demonstrate that German tactical excellence can overcome material disadvantages. Rommel saluted. There was nothing more to say. In the corridor outside, Speer caught up to him. The armaments minister spoke quietly, checking that no one was within hearing. Your figures are accurate. I have been receiving similar intelligence. American production is extraordinary, beyond anything we can match. I have tried to explain this to the Führer. He dismisses economic realities as irrelevant to German determination. What will happen? Rommel asked. Speer was silent for a moment. We will continue fighting. We will try to increase production to be more efficient, but the fundamental equation will not change. American industry is too large, too efficient. Unless something unexpected occurs, a political collapse in America, a decisive technological breakthrough on our side, the material balance will determine the outcome. And that outcome, you have already seen it in North Africa. Defeat through overwhelming material superiority. It will simply take time to manifest across all theaters. Rommel returned to Africa carrying the knowledge that his warning had been heard and rejected. Hitler would continue believing that German will and tactical excellence could overcome American industrial power, and German soldiers would continue fighting against enemies who had more tanks, more aircraft, more ammunition, more of everything, until the arithmetic that Rommel had laid out on a table in East Prussia finished its work. The true battlefield, Rommel now understood, was not the Libyan desert or the fields of France or the streets of Berlin. It was the factories of Detroit and Pittsburgh, the shipyards of San Francisco and Norfolk, the American industrial heartland that Hitler had dismissed as soft and incapable. That was where Germany had already lost. Everything else was the time it would take for the loss to become visible to those who had refused to see it.